Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of College Blitz. I'm Russ Morgan here with my co-host Q. We've always talked about this. College football is finally done. It was gone way too fast. Obviously, we had the game last Monday. I feel like it was a long time ago, but it was actually only on Monday. Indiana ended up winning 27-24. So, Miami made it a game, but I have my own reactions being an unbiased fan, but what is, first off, how are we doing after Monday night, Monday night's loss?
Man, I'm good. I'm recovered. Monday night wasn't the greatest. I think that what ended up happening was what the majority of the people I think were expecting to happen. I was in the minority in that. I thought Miami would win the game. Obviously, maybe me being a little bit of a homer, but I think if you really watched the game from an unbiased angle and view, I don't think that you're out of line or saying anything controversial by saying if Miami plays a cleaner game, they win that. They win the title, right? I think you're looking at a game that was that they ended up losing. And they lose by, it was 6 points, I guess it was. You miss a field goal and you give up a pump block, for a touchdown, right? And so, I think the field goal miss is what it is. I think the pump block, you could a couple of different ways of looking at that. I saw some explanations where they were saying, because I in the moment that it happened, I was saying, I don't understand why Malachi Tony fielded the punt. He was inside his 5. I thought it was a mistake. And then I saw some breakdown of the play where they were saying they were setting up a trick play where I guess it looked like he was going to field it, but then throw it across the field, as a lateral, and again, the trick play was already set up, and that's why he fielded it. But obviously, they didn't really get any, they didn't get many yards on that drive, and of course, they blocked the punt where Dylan Joyce for some reason just drifts all the way into the defender after Alex Bauman misses the block. Dylan Joyce kind of drifts right and literally hands it right to the D lineman from Indiana who blocks it and then recovers it in the end zone. So again, I think when you kind of take the broad view of the game, I think it's difficult to not be disappointed, but at the same time, it's also difficult to not be optimistic and excited about the direction of the program and how far we've come since Mario got there. And what's going on in recruiting, what's going on currently in the transfer portal, that we can get to and everything. But again, man, I think so much to like when you look at the way the season went, right? You beat half the top 10. You kind of avenge a loss against Ohio State. You go to obviously before that you go to Kyle Field, beat Texas A&M. You beat Ole Miss, and in a thriller. And I think for anybody who had any doubt, when the 12-team playoff got announced, anybody who had any doubts about whether Miami belonged, I think those questions have been answered, and I think people can shut the hell up at this point. Wondering if Miami should have been in, right? I think if I've said from the jump, if Notre Dame, had any gripe against anybody, I always said it should have been Alabama. I don't think Alabama should have been in, given the 3 losses, given the way they played. Leading up to that game after getting smoked by Georgia, and then they go in, they beat Oklahoma game 1, which again I don't think was a huge surprise necessarily given the way they were playing on offense. But then they go play Indiana in the Rose Bowl and get absolutely curb stomped. So again, I think for all these people that had any doubt about whether Miami belonged, I think those questions were answered. With them making the title game, didn't play a clean game, but I think. They had they done so, right, I think they would have put themselves in a position to win, title number 6. So again, all in all, man, I'm recovered from it. I'm able to look on it, in a kind of a broad view, And I know that this season was success. It was a huge success. And I think moving forward, man, I think it's a program that's heading in the right direction, has a lot of momentum, has a right man, in charge to to possibly make another run next year again.
Well, quickly before I get in the game and the Alabama stuff, because I do have a handful of Notre Dame friends and they're still going at it, which I think they rightfully so. But on the Miami stuff going forward, I think going into this year, Mario Cristobal had a lot of questions, a lot of coaching questions. You go back a couple years ago. Was it against Georgia Tech? He shouldn't have kneeled. He decided to run. They ended up losing that game. I mean, I think there was a lot of questions that he answered this year that he can, handle the big game. They went in, you beat Texas A&M at Kyle Field, which is a raucous environment. You beat Ohio State, who's defending national champ. You play a really tough game against Ole Miss and win that game. I mean, this game, like we're talking about the blocked punt was definitely a moment. Miami had nothing going in the first half. They finally get the mark. Fletcher gets the touchdown. They're starting to get a little momentum. Yes, Tony should just let the ball go. But what was it, 87 doesn't even just lets the guy walk through for the block. I mean, it was like he forgot his assignment there. But I mean, I think that was one of my key points that I was talking, thought about Indiana. If you looked at Miami and they make some dumb mistakes. Indiana definitely is, going into the playoffs, they had 12 defensive penalties. They play a fundamentally sound team, You can't really let them, make those mistakes. And Miami definitely made those mistakes. I think going forward, we'll see what happens with the quarterback position because there's a lot of, questions going on with Darian Mensah. Who as we were, both of us were like, geez, he's getting a lot of money, but he was, we'll see if Duke lets him out. Both of us going into the year is like Darian Mensah is getting the most, NIL money, but now
I was skeptical for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, rightfully so, but now we'll see what he gets if he gets let out from his contract. But I mean, this guy, led Duke to ACC title. So, I mean, rightfully so. I guess he earned his money. On that, I got a number of Notre Dame fans. And at first they were, question, why were we ahead of Miami all the way going up? And then right at the end, we jumped Miami. I'm like, one of the biggest gripes I heard, I was like, if that's the way you're going to do it, just put Miami ahead of us instead of putting Notre Dame. Hey, Notre Dame's 10, Miami's 13. Notre Dame's 10, Miami's 13. We go into the playoffs. Oh, Miami jumps you. I'm like, that. One of their gripes was like, why do you do this to lead up and then change it right at the end? The other one I've been hounding is like you brought up. I'm like, if the biggest question mark and the biggest anger you should have is towards Alabama. Alabama, 3 losses, but what I've told all my Notre Dame friends is, and I think on both sides, is you can't. The College Football Playoff Committee doesn't want to set a precedent of you're in the playoffs, going into the conference championship game, and you lose. Sorry, you're out. But then you can look at it on the other side where BYU did the same thing. And we're in the championship game and we lost. So, I mean, there's a little bit of I get it. SEC has
it's selective enforcement. It's selective enforcement because of the program involvement. That's Alabama, right? And listen, look, I'm with you to a certain extent, right? I'm not one of these people who I think you should penalize, people teams playing in the conference title game within reason. Because when you look at Alabama and their performance leading up to it, okay, they were a team with 3 losses, right? There had not been a team. Obviously, it was only the second year of the 12-team playoff, but the first team led in with 3 losses, right? And essentially they kind of backed their way into the 12-team field, right? They had not played well leading up to the selection, right? when you look at what it is they had done, they have been terrible on offense. There was a bunch of injuries. They hadn't played well on defense, right? And then they go in against Georgia, which, okay, cool, right? You make the SEC title game, fine, but you go in against Georgia and get absolutely smoked, right? And so, again, when you look at, the resume kind of leading into it, right? I mean, there are things that you have to call into question, right? And so I think this notion that Alabama getting left out would have been an indictment on them just based on the SEC title game, I think is false, right? I think when you're looking at for me, if I would have had a vote, my deal would have been, no, this is a body of work vote, right? This is a game 1 through 13 view is what I'm taking here. And the fact of the matter is, you hadn't played well. Ty Simpson had played like ass. The offense was not playing well, right? Ryan Williams has essentially, disappeared from his freshman season, which he dominated, right? The defense wasn't playing well. And so, again, you had that one game outlier against Oklahoma, but then, you play Indiana and you get absolutely just beat down, right? And so, again, I think to me, that's further proof that I think that SEC title game loss should have mattered. And Alabama should not have been, let in that field, over Notre Dame, right? And for all the people clamoring about, oh, they hadn't changed, till the last, till Selection Sunday, and how come they listen? At that point, the resumes were complete, right? The resumes were complete literally till the very last game of the season, right? But once the resumes were complete, all right, equal records, right? Very equal numerically in terms of rankings and everything like that, kind of across the board. And then the one thing you take above all else is the head-to-head, right? So I don't understand all this griping that Notre Dame was doing as it relates to Miami, right? Now, did they have a gripe? 100% they had a gripe. I'm not going to push back on that. Even as a guy who doesn't give a damn for Notre Dame, and anybody who knows me knows that, I literally couldn't care less about Notre Dame in any way, shape, form, or fashion, right? But to me, they did have a gripe, but their gripe should have been directed at the SEC and at Alabama, not at Miami.
I get it in a sense. It's like, hey, you should have gone head to head right off the bat. If they have the same record, strength of record, which they did. Now, it would be a different story if, say, Miami did have. They ended up losing one game. Miami loses 2. You got to do that. But you've got the same exact record all year. Pretty similar strength to schedule too. Miami, going into that, I think they were more, hey, you're just pulling the rug out. Like, why Miami should have been ahead of them all year. If they are that close, which they were very close, Miami won the game head to head. Head to head doesn't matter. But it's my thing, I'm not happy Notre Dame should have been in there. It would have been a better product on the field. But I just think the committee, which is, like you said, selective, but they don't want to set the precedent, hey, you're in, you play the conference title game, you're out. And then teams are going to be like, I'm just going to take my bye. I'm going to bow out of the title game this year.
Yeah, but I get it.
It's kind of it's kind of the way that the NC college football is going now.
I get it, but you had to show up though. In Alabama,
no, it didn't show up.
Like if you show up right, and again, everything right. Everything runs off Vegas and their spread and who's the favorite and the whole deal. But like to me, if you make that thing a game, then no, you don't penalize them, right? And that's my big thing with this. You can't penalize. Pardon my French, but the fuck you can't. You can't penalize them, and you should.
Yeah.
You can't penalize them, and you should. I'm not on board with this. Oh well, you just show up, for the conference title game. Oh, and then we're not going to show up. You're going to set a precedence where teams are going to show up. No, that's not going to happen because the money involved and the ties and everything. People are going to show up. But the problem is you can't just show up there and warm up and expect to we're already in. We're going to get stomped and we're still going to be in. No, I think that's BS. If you show up and you make it a game, then yes. But don't just show up and then you get smoked and it not cost you. I think it should 100% cost you if you show up and get smoked.
It's the NCAA. I mean, as we see now, this is AAA and NFL football now. It's not That's all it is. This is the minor leagues for football. It's all about money. What brings in money? Who owns SEC Network? That's ESPN. I mean, I'm 100% with you. If Alabama loses by 7, they're in 100%.
Yeah.
They got killed.
Yeah,
but, and
that's my thing.
And that's my thing.
And the same thing happened to BYU.
Yeah,
and the same thing happened to BYU. They got excluded for losing the conference title game. Like,
I just think, yeah, that's why I was like, hey, I'm like, BYU has the same gripe as Notre Dame. I'm like, hey, they got in, lost the conference title game. They both got their ass kicked.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't have mattered. It should have been Notre Dame. I see where they're coming from, but I don't agree with it. And obviously my opinion has no matter whatsoever on that. But I see where they're coming from. Like, we don't want it, but it's like you said, it's now we see it's all about money. And it's not even Carson Beck said, Carson Beck came out, guy goes, you got class on Friday? He goes, I haven't gone to class I graduated 2 years ago.
Graduated, yeah.
I'm like,
he's not the first person to ever do that. Like, it's Carson Beck, so it's news. It's like, you realize like the guys in Indiana all graduated like 5 years ago. All those old bastards playing for Indiana. Like, none of them dudes were in class. They're all like 25 years old. But Carson Beck says it and it's news, right? Meanwhile, nobody at Indiana goes to school. Like those guys all graduated college like 5 years ago.
And that's going to be ending with COVID. The COVID red shirt they gave and all that BS.
Well, listen, I don't know if you saw, but now I don't know if it's a proposal or if it got approved where they're either looking to or just approved you're allowed to play in like 8 or 9 games and still maintain your red shirt.
That's insane.
What sense does that make? What sense does that make? How are you going to let somebody play like basically 2/3 of the season and allow them to not burn a red shirt?
Dude, if I was a top prospect, if I was like on the borderline, I'd be like, hey, I'll sit out. I'll play my 8 games and sit out. I'll get some work.
Of course.
You could sit out the first 4 games and then still play. And I played in the national title game, but hey, I'm going to redshirt next year.
How does that make any sense? And that's just hurting like your fringe high school guys, right?
But the transfer portal is hurting high school guys.
Yeah.
Because why would you want to spend a lot of NIL money on an unproven high school guy?
Yeah, look at Indiana. Look at Indiana.
Yeah,
like every one of those guys, Signetti came out and said, he's like, man, look, I'm looking for production. I'm not looking for I'm looking for potential. I'm looking for production. And listen, hats off to them, man. Look, I'm not going to be one of these angry Miami fans or whatever, right? And honestly, I think hats off to the vast majority, honestly, of the Miami fan base, based on what I've seen. I think everybody, again, you're always going to have shitbag, factions of every single fan base. That is what it is. Obviously, we've seen it, whether it's pro, whether it's, college, it doesn't matter the sport. I think you're going to have just terrible, sections of fan bases. But I think by and large, the majority of the Miami fan base, I think, has looked at everything, I think, objectively, positively, right? I think everybody's looking at, how far we've come, where we're at now. And I think, are excited about, where the program is going, what Mario has done, so on and so forth. But again, I think, along with that, my hat's off to Indiana, to Curt Signetti, to the team they put together, right? I think, I don't think Fernando Mendoza, Fernando Mendoza, before the season started, if you didn't follow college football, or if you didn't follow it closely, I should say, you didn't know who the hell Fernando Mendoza was.
He also played on the West Coast.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Guy that, was committed to Yale, flipped to Cal, 11th hour, was over there on the West Coast, playing when everybody else was sleeping. A guy who not many people knew, a guy who I saw a lot of the Miami podcasts, touting him as a possibility for Miami. And almost universally, people were going, absolutely not. The hell are we talking about, Fernando Mendoza? Like, no, you know what I mean? Again, generally speaking. So, again, I think, hats off to Curt Signetti, to his staff, the coordinators, the players, everything, man, the talent, acquisition and the player identification and the scouting process and the whole deal for them, man, I think was top notch. I think, they put together a team that was, a veteran team, guys who were older, who, had produced, maybe not necessarily in really prominent roles, but you had a bunch of adults, in the locker room, man, and that matters, right? And so, again, they put together a really good team, a veteran team, a team that played, fundamentally sound football. They didn't beat themselves, and again, am I one of those people, who is on the side of, this is the greatest, football team in the college football history? Absolutely not. But what I will say is they're a very, very good football team. They're a very sound football team. A team that, wins on the line of scrimmage, a team that wins, without a bunch of flash. They kind of do everything right. They don't beat themselves. And they got rewarded with a national title, man. So again, hats off to them. I'm not going to sit here and bash them.
No,
it is what it is. You take it out like a man and keep it moving.
That's when you're a true fan. Hey, I'm pissed off, but you got to know, hey, they were the better team on the field. They played cleaner. That's
yeah. No, 100%. You can't deny it, right? I mean, I'm not going. I guess you can if you want to, right? I mean, you can make an argument for anything and everything, right? But I mean, again, I think going into the game, I think universally everybody recognized that for Miami to win this game, they had to play clean, right? They had to stay away from penalties. They had to stay away from self-inflicted wounds, and and they didn't, right? I think they did a good job of kind of gathering themselves and coming out in the second half and really, really taking control of the game in the second half, right? I mean, I don't know if you want to use the word dominate necessarily, but they definitely came out in the second half and Bain and Mesidor were on, Mendoza, from the word go, right? I mean, I think, they made key stops in the whole deal. Where I think the issues for me, lie, for example, if you're looking at the Miami defense versus their offense, I think the inability to get off the field on fourth down, I think on third and fourth down, I think there were, and I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but, Indiana was really good on third down. They were very good on fourth down, so they weren't able to, they were able to extend drives against the Miami defense, which hurt, and then, obviously the special teams, mistakes, which ultimately cost them. And then on offense, I know, dude, listen, this is the thing I don't get about. I think the Carson Beck hate has just. And I'm so glad that listen, not for Miami necessarily, because I think he was really good for Miami, but I'm glad that he just gets to move on and just go and see what happens in the NFL. Because, dude, in college, look, if that guy walked on water, they would say it's because he couldn't swim, right? It didn't matter what that guy did, what he didn't do. People were always bashing him. People were always doing everything. And where I'm going with that is when you look at the time he had back there, the Miami O-line was doing their job, right? They were giving him, generally speaking, he had a lot of time back there to make a decision and decide what he was going to do with the ball. Those receivers simply were not getting open, right? And hats off to the Indiana DBs, D'Angelo Pounds and the crew. I mean, those guys played really well. But I think it just highlights the fact that Miami next year really needs to put receivers on the field that excel on getting open.
The one thing I noticed from this game to the previous game, first off on the Indiana side, minus Lacey with Ole Miss had no run. I mean, they had no running game. A&M had no running game. Ohio State had no running game. Hemby and Black definitely got the running game going. We're talking about key penalties. Before the Mendoza touchdown, they had a penalty on that would have made it a second and long. That could have ended that drive there for just a field goal instead of Mendoza running in for a touchdown. That was really big. On going into the Ole Miss game, Malachi Tony's phenomenal. He played. I mean, he was 10 for 122. But the one guy who I was thinking, hey, he's got to play big, who played big in that old, your number 2, CJ Daniels, wasn't as,
He could not get open to save his life.
And he was very, very key in that Ole Miss victory.
Mm-hmm. And so Keelan Marion. Keelan Marion was the guy who led them in receiving.
Okay.
In that Ole Miss game, he's number 0. He was the one that led them in receiving yards.
6. I mean, it was basically Malachi Tony. Daniels, 4 for 62, so that's respectable, but still,
Yeah, Keelan May disappeared in that Indiana game.
But I mean, the Fernando Mendoza. I mean, he only 186, 16 for 27, no touchdowns. Black at 79, Hemby at 60. So they got a good 1-2 punch in the backfield. Fernando Mendoza ended with 7 carries for -8 yards, but had that massive touchdown, which I don't know if you saw. The guy Mendoza ran over to get to the end zone. I can't remember the defensive player on the Miami was the same player who knocked out Fernando Mendoza at Cal last year. I mean, like rocked his shit. Was the same as that. Like they've been showing it. Like the same guy who got run over this year, he rocked Mendoza last year.
Yeah, it's about Wesley Bassane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Mendoza, he plays a clean game, and if he wasn't the number 1 pick going into that game, he's definitely earned it. And is definitely a guy. I've obviously I'm a Jets fan. I'm like, if there's a guy, we're not getting Fernando Mendoza. Obviously, he's going 1. But if there's a guy, any guy you'd want, whatever you think of Fernando Mendoza, what his ceiling is, or which I think he could be a good NFL quarterback. If there's any guy wanting to go to Vegas and succeed, it would be Fernando Mendoza, because he's not going to be spending time in the casino or the strip club. He's all about football. I mean,
can you imagine? Can you like anybody watching? And if you disagree, tell me. Can you imagine Fernando Mendoza in a strip club?
No.
Like, can you imagine what that would look like? I mean, it would be like a middle schooler, at a strip club. Like that dude wouldn't know. That guy wouldn't know what to do. I mean, come on. Like, no, there's no way that guy's going to any strip club.
I'm just like this guy's just pure football. So I
100%. Yeah, 100%.
It's gonna fit perfect in Vegas because we've seen all what's going on with what's happened since the Raiders moved from Oakland to Las Vegas. They've hey, you've got a lot of temptations in Cincinnati there, a lot of temptations. And if there's anybody who can do it, whatever his ceiling is, whatever your comparison is, I think he's the guy who could at least succeed there because he isn't driven by the nightlife. He's driven by football.
Yeah, and that's important in a place like Vegas, man. Obviously, with as many temptations as there are in Vegas, I think you definitely have to, you definitely have to go there with the right mindset, and be ready to work because if you let yourself, you can definitely get consumed there for sure. Right. Oh. And so, just real quick to touch on again, when we talk about, what Miami did, what they could have done and how the results would have been different. This is just some facts, from the game. Right. This is an opinion. This is pure fact. Right. And when you look at what Miami had in their favor. Right. So real quick, Mark Fletcher ran for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? You know how many 100-yard rushers Indiana had given up the whole season?
0,
right? So Mark Fletcher was the first one. Malachi Toney, 110 yards and a touchdown, right? Miami was a more explosive offense, right? 6.5 yards a play versus 4.4 yards per play. Miami had 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. IU, 1 of each. Fernando Mendoza would throw for under 200 yards, didn't throw for a touchdown. If you predicted all that to happen, right, would you like your chances if you're Miami to win the game? I for sure. If you tell me that before the game starts, I'm like, well, Miami's going to win the game, right? And so when you talk about again, listen, I've seen. Trust me, I was at a cigar shop watching it. I saw these people rooting for Indiana. One of them was an Illinois and Alabama fan, which explain that one however it is you want to explain it, right? And then another guy was a Michigan fan, right? So you had another guy who I think was a Georgia fan, and a couple other people who I don't know who they rooted for, right? But and I say that to say, look, I get rooting against Miami for however it is you want to root against Miami. Go right ahead. I don't care. But when you sit there and look at the way the game went, if you really watch the game and you know what you're looking at, there's no way that you can realistically tell me that Miami didn't have a chance in that game. I said from the jump, the line of scrimmage was going to matter, right? And you had to play a clean game. Now, Indiana ran the ball better than I thought they could. I did not think that those running backs, I know they were good, but they weren't guys that were big or anything. That Hemby and Black weren't big dudes or anything, but they ran with way more power than I expected them to run with, right? It was impressive. I think they ran through, they broke a bunch of tackles, got into the second level. So again, hats off to them. But when you sit there and look at in a title game, which, and not to mention the fact that it's like the closest title game in I can't remember how many years, but because most title games have been blowouts. But when you look at such a close game, right, those games are won in the margins, right? Things like penalties, things like special teams, all that. And the advantage to that went to Indiana, right? Not to mention the fact that they were better on fourth down and that kind of thing. But, again, when you look at those facts that I just mentioned, then you look at what special teams did, right? And again, Miami could have won that game. They could have won that game. Like, so this notion that, Miami didn't belong or, they got dominated. None of that could be further from the truth, right? They deserve to be there. They showed they deserve to be there, and they had a chance all the way till the end with that, just the miscommunication between Carson Beck and Keelan Marion. But again, they were driving down the field, and again, obviously that's going to go on Beck, but things I've seen are Keelan Marion ran the wrong route or something like that. He had Keelan Marion had kind of cleared out, and I think he had Malachi Tony about to kind of cut across the the field, which I think that was probably the read, but he threw it. And, listen, man, that's the game. But in the end, don't let anybody tell you that Miami didn't belong on that field, like, because that couldn't be further from the truth.
Oh, no. I think Indiana earned it. I'm with you. I mean, Miami probably had one of the toughest routes to get there. You have to go to A&M, you have to play Ohio State, you have to play Ole Miss, and they probably have one of the toughest routes. But it's definitely, I think we were both on the same page. It's the line of scrimmage, and we both talked about Miami's got to play a clean game because as you see, Indiana doesn't make a lot of mistakes with penalties, and that was Miami's was able to overcome that in other games. And it was just a little too much. Yes, the kicker definitely missing the field goal would have made it a lot more interesting at the end if it's 27-24. But I mean, the special teams, you can't really make the little things in those games, and especially playing a team like Indiana, it's the little things that are going to get you. And the special teams, giving up a punt block for a touchdown. Was Miami had some momentum. You had Mark Fletcher just ripped off a big touchdown run. Miami had some momentum going when they had nothing in the first half. They finally had some momentum that kind of switched it. But they came back, made it close, and made it a very good game. So it wasn't like that put them out, but that definitely helped Indiana get a little more momentum because Miami, if they had a drive there, or the defense was starting to play better, they could have got a stop and gone down for a field goal or got a touchdown, and it would have been a lot closer. But I mean, it's the little things, and that's why you see Indiana won the national title. First time ever, obviously, and Big Ten title since I don't even know what it was, and insane number for them. But it was the little things, and I'm with you. I mean, they earned the right to be there. We'll see what they do next year because I mean, you're losing your quarterback, which we all know the quarterback's the most important position on the field. Even though I do think the offensive line, you could have a great quarterback, but if you got a shit offensive line, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, and I'm sure you've heard it, the one common in all Miami's losses this year, they all lost by 6, and they all ended with a Carson Beck interception.
Yeah, so
I mean, I can't. Yeah, I mean, it's just like ironic. You can't blame Beck for everything. I think he proved that he can do it outside. He's good enough to play outside of Georgia. Which was probably one of the big, it's Georgia's they're so great. He proved he can do it. Will he be a first-round pick? Probably not, but it is a crap, quarterback class. So who knows? And we all know quarterbacks fly up the board. But he's proved he can definitely be a serviceable quarterback or a backup, definitely a backup. But he's proven he can definitely play.
You listen, man. The win-loss record in a conference like the SEC, right? And then again, the biggest thing, even aside from that, right? Because obviously a lot of that has to do with the team and the roster and the whole deal. But again, man, everything is how do you translate to the next level, right? How do you project to the next level? And again, man, you're going on measurables, right? This is a guy who's not a little dude, right? I think Carson Beck is every bit of 6'4", probably 230 pounds. He's a guy who isn't an elite athlete necessarily, right? But a guy who was a baseball player in high school, was committed to the University of Florida on a baseball scholarship, right? So wasn't a center fielder or anything, but he was a third baseman, right? But again, a guy who played, who played more than just football. Those guys always translate well for some reason. Anybody who plays more than one sport, but again, a guy who is an athlete, right? A guy who isn't. He's not an elite athlete at the quarterback position, but I think a guy who's got mobility. He showed that in the Ole Miss game and at various times throughout the season. So he's not a statue. And so again, he's obviously not Lamar, right? But again, a guy who's got the size, who's got an NFL arm. I think a guy who, I think there's some things that maybe need to be coached out of him. But again, a guy with the measurables and the resume, that is more than adequate to be taken in possibly day 2 of the draft, right? Depending on what this class breaks down like, and obviously a class that a quarterback class that is not heavy with a bunch of impressive names at the quarterback position. So that'll probably suit him well. I think you can make the argument that he's the the third quarterback, fourth quarterback in this class. Who knows? I mean, let's see where that gets him. But again, if you sit there and compare him to a lot of these guys who were projected to be first round pick 1, right, and top of the first round type guys, Nussmeier, Aller, Klubnik. Listen, I'm not trying to be a homer here. I would take, as an NFL prospect, I would take Carson Beck over any one of those 3 guys, right, and many other ones that are going to be in the draft. So again, I think
I take him over Klubnik and Aller. And you can talk to Bob about that. I never been a fan of Drew Aller. I think Nussmeier is probably has some ability. There's that he needs to just to get there, but also no for me on Klubnik or Drew Aller. I'm not a fan of Drew Aller. Yeah. I get it. He's mad. He's 6'5". He's got an NFL arm. I'm like, I've seen enough. I don't watch. I'm sorry. When I watch the NFL, I watch college football. When I'm evaluating a prospect, I'm watching the game. I'm not going on YouTube and watching clips of his. I'm watching, like, how is this guy doing in live action? Drew Aller doesn't get it done for me. Yeah, but Drew Aller's trash. Amen. I definitely think he's a day 2 prospect. Yeah, I mean, with this class, he's definitely the 3rd or 4th best quarterback. 4th rated quarterback. I don't know if 4th best. I think there's a lot of conversation with the class where who's going to be that number 2? Is it going to be Ty Simpson? But is Trinidad Chambliss going to be in there? I definitely think he's in that 3rd or 4th ranked quarterback range. I think Ty Simpson's going to get pushed up. Please don't take him at 16. He could have quarterbacked the New York Jets this year. We had Brady Cook half the year as a quarterback. You telling me Carson Beck's not better than Brady Cook?
My money would be on Carson Beck.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I think Carson Beck with the right coaching staff and in the right system, man. I think that guy has a chance, to do something in the NFL. Right? Again, is he elite? No, I don't think he's elite. I think the measurables are really good. I think he's got an NFL arm. I think he's definitely got some stuff to clean up, man. But listen, there's been way worse quarterback prospects, drafted higher than where he's going to go, right? Yeah. So again, we'll see how. Hopefully he'll be, either at the Senior Bowl, Senior Bowl or what's the other one? The Shrine Bowl or something. Either one of those, man. Hopefully he goes there, shows out really well, tests well, and and hopefully he's got a chance to go possibly day 2, right? But again, I think you can do a lot worse as a prospect than Carson Beck.
Yeah. And we've hit the game. Congratulations to Indiana, but I mean now we're looking. Now we're seeing. I mean, this transfer portal is nuts, insane, and obviously now the dust is settled. But now you had the Washington guy. I can't remember his name. Quarterback from Washington signed.
Damon Wilson.
Damon Williams.
There you go.
He signed his deal with Washington, then opted out, and then realized, they're going to hold him to his contract. He ends up going back to Washington. But obviously now the big question is, and Miami's right there in the middle of it, which is with Darian Mensah. Will he, he signed his 2-year contract with Duke. They're saying the reports are he will not be able to get let out to go to school at Miami is the reports, I think. But he's entered the portal. And obviously that would be, there's going to be right now there's a gaping hole at quarterback. Yes, you're going to lose a Ruben Bain who could easily be, go anywhere from 2 to 4 in the NFL draft, which I'm happy. A little of the NFL talk, me being a Jets fan, we need a quarterback. I get it. We need a quarterback, but if you do your research, guys who have 20 starts or less, and Ty Simpson is right there, don't succeed in the NFL. And Dante Moore's got 20 starts. So I'm like, the Jets would have probably took him. I mean, it would have been nice if he was in the draft. Jets maybe would have finally made a smart move and trade down to get more assets. But the Jets probably would have took him because that's what we do, force the pick. I'm like, hey, good, go back to college now. We can get a Arvell Reese or Caleb Downs or Ruben Bain or David Bailey from Texas Tech. Because I'm like, okay, let's make the smart decision, not just force the quarterback. Because you see, if 20 starts or less, I mean, you see it right now with Anthony Richardson. Yes, he can't stay healthy, but when he was in the game, he can't process the information. I mean, now we did have one quarterback with the Jets who does, Mark Sanchez, who had 16 starts, and you can shit on him all you want, but this is the first year in the AFC it hasn't featured the Patriot or I can't remember. There's another team. It's not the Patriots. It's featured Chiefs, and somebody else, and the Jets.
So it's probably Bills, Chiefs. Who else that it hasn't featured?
It was. This is the first year it has the AFC Championship game won't feature. It's featured. It's always had Mahomes, Brady, or Mark Sanchez since like 2009.
Oh wow.
Mark Sanchez. I'm sorry. Hey, he's got more playoff wins than all you Cowboys fans. Mark Sanchez got more playoff wins than you.
Yeah.
30 years.
Yes, he does. And definitely has more conference championship appearances than the Cowboys, who haven't appeared in one in like 30 years. So.
Yeah. Once Jimmy Johnson left, you haven't really been back. All you Dolphins fans, you can shit on him because of one play, but hey, I get it. That one play, ruined everything. I knew he was never, like, they tried to make him into something he was not. He was never going to be a top 10 quarterback who was going to dominate. But one play kind of just defined his career. And I don't even need to dignify the name for it. But, I mean, he was 4-2 in the playoffs and, 2 back-to-back AFC championship games. But
you don't want to say the name of the play, the BF. You don't want to say the BF.
We don't even need to bring that up. Have you seen anything? And obviously, have you seen any like
BF?
When he was with the Eagles, the guy brought it up. He was just like, "Wow, that's a low blow, man." Like that you bring up. But obviously, you got transfer rating. Yeah, yeah. We got transfers, but also no surprise. ESPN already throws out their early 2026 rankings, which had featured Texas very high again. Texas number 2, Indiana number 1, but that's just, will probably change. But they did pick up a nice, the TCU quarterback, a nice transfer, and Fernando Mendoza's brother is transferring. So, hey, Miami, maybe you bring a hometown kid.
He landed at Georgia Tech.
He's gone where? Kentucky?
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. Okay, I saw that was like where he was going. They got the Irish at 3, Georgia at 4, Oregon at 5, Ohio State 6, Texas Tech 7, Miami at 8, Ole Miss 9, but we'll see what Ole Miss does too, and Texas A&M at 10. But
some of those are, come on.
I mean, Indiana's because they won the national title.
Well, yeah, the Indiana deal, but obviously, I mean, they're, again, without Mendoza, listen, they landed that kid Hoover from TCU, which again, I'm sure I'm sure he's good. I never watched him play. Sure he's good, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
ESPN loves to hype up Texas.
My God, yeah. Dude, have you seen how much talent Texas has lost in the portal? Yeah, have you paid attention to what they've lost in the portal? They have lost a shit ton in the portal. I mean, they've lost so much talent.
I mean, you're going to lose Anthony Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, Anthony Hill's a dude. Probably could be a first-round pick. I mean, They love Texas. I mean, I get it. Arch looked very good to end the year. But
Colin Simmons, right? Was it Colin Simmons? I don't know if he declared. But, dude, they had so many people between the draft and the portal. They've lost a ton of people. And now they've landed a couple guys in the portal, but I guarantee they paid them a ton of money for them to go there. But let me tell you what. We'll see. Yeah. But I don't listen, they weren't that great this year. I mean, I know they had a good end of the year, but they weren't that great, and they lost a ton, and I don't think they've replaced everything they've lost. So
yeah,
we shall see. But
Notre Dame at 3, and right there they put out their odds. Arches was like plus 500 for the. They love that too. The Arch was the betting favorite going into last year's Heisman when he played, one full game and a spot start and like coming in garbage time, and then they got CJ Carr, who was right below him. Which, if it's all evident, I think 27 quarterback class looks good. Now it looks good on paper. I mean, with that, with Carr, with Sane, with Arch, we'll see how Lenore Sellers will bounce back. I think he'll have a better year with another year under his belt. We'll see what South Carolina does in the SEC, but they do love some Longhorns there. They love Texas. They just like when ESPN was riding LeBron heavy. They were all over his dick when he was with all over. I couldn't turn on the TV and not see Stephen A. Smith bring up LeBron James when he was with the Heat. They wouldn't be talking about the Heat, and LeBron James would come up in conversation. But they, on the couch, they love Texas. It's just like every year.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. They're one of those.
It's a big.
They're one of those programs that I wouldn't call a blue blood necessarily. I think they are just they're a huge brand, right? I think they're the most profitable athletic department in the country, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of just a university. And then the football program, man, right? Obviously, again, it's a program it's a big brand. They put talent, obviously, and But I think by and large, right? I think I think they tend to underachieve. I don't know that they ever really live up to expectations a bunch, right? And I think this year was no different with Arch, starting off super slow, ended up obviously better. But I think a guy in Sark, who I think is just I think he's good, right? I don't know if Sark is a great coach necessarily. I just again I think he's a good coach. But I don't think he's ever lived up to this, to this billing, as an elite coach or anything like that. Right? I think he recruits well because he's got, the backing of a great NIL arrangement, with Texas. But I don't think he's a guy who, when you're looking at, the elite coaches in the country, again, I would stop short of putting him in that category.
I got it right here. All right, so way Heisman betting odds. CJ Carr's plus 800, Arch Manning plus 850. I'm just doing the top 5. Jeremiah Smith plus 1100, Julian Sain plus 1100, and Josh Hoover plus 1100, Dante Moore plus 1100.
Yeah, I mean, again, early on, I would put Arch up there. I would put Dante Moore there.
Yeah. But
I think those would probably be my top 2, without a doubt.
As we're wrapping, unfortunately, we don't like to say it, but we wrapped up the 25 season, and we do want to hit on what's going on with Darian Mensah, because it is a telenovela over there with what's going on with Mensah. What is your Q? What is your opinion with what's going with Mensah? Do you think he ends up getting let out from his contract with Duke to pursue other options, which it sounds like he's going to pursue? Miami's going to be where he wants to go.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's what's going to happen. I think if you look around at what everybody's saying, the opinions kind of coming out. I think the big thing for them, obviously, again, you start with the fact that for Duke, it kind of sucks that now the portal's closed, right? I think there's still some quarterbacks that are in the portal. Obviously, I don't think any of them are as good as Darian Mensah. Darian Mensah obviously is a guy who didn't start off great, but when it was all said and done, right, quarterbacks, the Duke Blue Devils to the ACC title, he put up great numbers. He was really the only quarterback ahead of him in terms of yards and touchdowns. That was Fernando Mendoza, right? I think he was second in both categories, if I'm not mistaken. Big time quarterback, man, and obviously Duke paid big time money to get him, right? They were giving him, it was a 2-year, $8 million deal, right? $4 million per. And when you look at, the situation, obviously it sucks for Duke because, of the timing of the portal. And now, with him being gone, obviously they're going to have a tough time replacing him, right? And so I think they were kind of connected to DJ Lagway, but ultimately he ended up at Baylor. And then, again, you look at, if you hear the reports, right, Mensah had not been on campus since the ACC title game. He had been in Florida working out. He hadn't enrolled in school. And so, again, I think if you're kind of reading the tea leaves, if you're Duke and you're looking at this and you're going, okay, well, he hasn't been on campus since. He hasn't enrolled in class, which he needed to. I don't know that this should be a huge surprise really to anybody, especially not Duke, right? If you're keeping tabs on everything, right? You have your OC or, whoever their quarterback's coach is, if they're separate people, analysts, grad assistants, whoever it is that he's got, relationships with. Obviously, Manny Diaz, I would imagine, we're at the top of that list. Hearing, that he's down in Florida working out, he's not enrolling in school, right? The deadline passed to enroll in school. I think the writing should be on the wall, right, at this point. So I don't know, why it was a surprise to them that that this is the way things ended. But along with that, I think Duke, the big thing for them is recouping that money, right? And so if you're looking at what the precedence here is now, again, it's a new precedence, but the linebacker from Ole Miss that just committed to LSU, Prince Will, and his name is a tough one. Ulu Maneum or something like that. He committed LSU, and what LSU agreed to do was pay, what they had already given him in NIL. And so essentially that got worked into, the NIL package, right? And so they accounted for having to buy him out of the Ole Miss agreement. So I think they gave him like $1.5 million, and I think 500 of it went to pay off Ole Miss, and then $1 million went to him. And so I think moving forward, I think that's probably what you're going to start to see, for some of these deals, which, again, if you look at it again, I think as a Miami fan, I'm ecstatic that more than likely it's going to be Darian Mensah as a starting quarterback in 26. But,
Wouldn't have said
again,
that before 25 season.
no, yeah, because I just wasn't a fan. I was not a fan. I was very skeptical of the player and the money that Duke gave him. But listen, man, I heard somebody say the other day, listen, man, the same way you lose them, the same way you gain them, right? And nobody can tell me that Duke didn't tamper with Darian Mensah, because literally the portal opened, and 10 minutes after the portal opened, he was committed to Duke, and they were announcing the deal, right? So, this whole notion of tampering the whole deal, listen, it's not something that NCAA is going to be able to enforce. They've already proven that. There's been people that come forward with text messages and emails and the whole deal, and they still can't do anything, right? Because they have no subpoena power. They don't have anything, in the way of enforcement and subpoenaing, anybody to court and doing anything like that. So it continues to be sloppy. It continues to be a soap opera, unfortunately, right? And for Duke, you're on the losing end of it, and so I think moving forward, there's he is in the portal officially. I think they go back to court February 2nd, and I think that's kind of where we'll know what the next step is, that they have a temporary restraining order where he can't enroll in any school. But again, man, I think ultimately, if Miami agrees to pay, the $4 million, that he's owed, along with whatever, they're going to give him an NIL, I think all that can be worked out, right? You landed $32 million from the college football playoff, along with everything else you have available in NIL and everything. So, again, man, I think the money's there. And I think if you want to win big next year, you want to maximize this roster. Now you lost Emory Williams to Eastern Carolina. You have nobody else, that has really taken any significant steps at Miami. I think I know a lot of people are clamoring for, we need to develop a quarterback. Listen, what we need to do is win, and anybody who's not for that, anybody who's not moving in that same direction, they'll let them transfer.
Well, the way we've had this is year 2 of the college football playoff. What has been the common factor in both teams that made the final?
It's always a transfer quarterback.
Transfer quarterbacks, right?
It's always a transfer quarterback.
Will Howard, Fernando Mendoza, Carson Beck. They're all. I mean, and we
Trinidad Chambliss. So, right. I think the only quarterback, and I know for sure there's one, Gunnar Stockton wasn't a transfer. But if you're looking at everywhere else, again, look at Oregon. Dante Moore was a transfer. James Madison had a transfer. You're looking around at all these schools, who got in. The common denominator is damn near everybody had a transfer quarterback. That's just the way it is. Of the 13 quarterbacks drafted last year in the NFL, 12 of them were transfers, right? And so that's the new way. That's the new lay of the land. That's just how it goes. So paying a ton of money for these high school quarterbacks doesn't really make sense for most people, right? Because the fact of the matter is that more than likely they're going to transfer, right? The big money is in a transfer quarterback, but not a high school quarterback, right? Are they going to get paid? Yeah, you pay them, especially, your 5-star kids and everything. But the big money is going to transfer quarterbacks. And that's, I think, the schools with big time title aspirations, I think that's by and large the way that it's going to continue to be for the foreseeable future. Now, if things kind of even out, if some kind of cap is put in place and everything like that, then who knows? Maybe things change. But as it stands now, the teams that are willing to go and spend big on transfer quarterbacks are going to have the best chance to win the title.
Yep.
That's just how it goes.
And they're going to have holes. I mean, Indiana's going to have a lot more holes than Miami. Indiana's losing a lot of players with which both guys on the outside, you're losing your quarterback. That's enough. But on the defensive side, Miami's going to lose Akeem Mesidor. They're going to lose Ruben Bain. which are wreckers up front there. Because if Mesidor probably put himself in conversation for a first round draft, being a first round pick in the draft after his performance in the college football playoff. Bain, obviously, he's going to should be a top 5 pick. I mean, he could fall to 6, but he definitely will be a top 10 pick, if not a top 5.
I would be shocked if he's not.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think he goes anywhere from 2 to 4, 2 to 5, possibly, but 2 to 4, I see. It's if he gets past the Jets, I think it would be the Titans, because I don't give a for me. I take any of them. I like Ruben Bain a lot. I take Ruben Bain in a heartbeat. I don't give a shit about his shorter arms that everybody complains about. That his arms aren't as long. I mean, like, it really didn't matter. He got to the quarterback with those short ass arms, and all year. So
elite strength and athleticism and technique and all. That's what people should be paying attention to. Because I'm seeing a whole bunch of like Arvell Reese going, number 2 overall, and it's like, okay, I mean, cool. I know the dude can play. I know the measurables are there and the whole deal, but if you want to take Arvell Reese over Ruben Bain, then you can live with the consequences.
My 2 is either David Bailey from Texas Tech or Ruben Bain from Miami is who I want. And I wouldn't complain about Arvell Reese that's a position of need, and he's definitely a guy who's a top 5 guy. Our linebacking core needs it. But if I had my, way, if they stay there, which obviously a trade down would be great for the Jets because they need more than a quarterback. They need a lot. But, like, those are my 2. Bain or Bailey would be my 2 guys there. And, I wouldn't complain if it was Caleb Downs. I know he's a safety, and you don't take safeties that high, but Caleb Downs is a freak too.
Yeah, no, safeties are kind of, a tricky deal, right? I think, you've got, the guys that are elite, that do go high, but by and large, those are typically guys who, middle, if anything, middle of the first round to end of the first round for the guys that are really, really good. Kyle Hamilton is an example of a guy who I always thought, probably just based on talent and the way he translated to the NFL, probably should have been a top 5 pick, right? But it's the position, right? It's safety and off-ball linebacker, are just positions that, don't, there's more. There's plenty of players at those positions, right? I think not necessarily elite guys, but I think guys who can play the position. Safeties and off-ball linebackers are just typically positions that don't go in the top half of the first round because there's just a lot of them. And so, but obviously it paid off. Paid off with a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who, again, I think probably not much of an argument at this point. He's by far the best safety in the NFL, right? Derwin James is up there, and you got your Jesse Bateses, and your Nick Emmanwori's, the guy from Seattle, who I think is quickly on his way to becoming one of the best safeties in the league. But I don't know that you can make much of an argument for Kyle Hamilton not being the best safety in the league. The dude he's a weapon. You can put him anywhere in the field, and the guy just makes plays.
Yeah. All right, Q. You got anything you wanna hit on? I mean,
no, buddy. I think we got to just about everything, man. Again, man. I think when you look back on everything, man. If you're a Miami fan, just definitely don't be content, but definitely be happy. About where Miami is, what they're doing, how this year went. And I think where things are going to go in the near future. So, we'll see, but definitely be happy about where things are for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And too bad it's over. Now we got to move to the NFL. But we got maybe one good game. Hopefully, Jared Stidham can put a game together. And
did he? We'll
we'll
see how it goes.
Who knows what a catch is. Nobody knows what an actual catch is anymore ever since Des Bryant and that game against the Packers. Nobody can tell me what a catch is, and the refs can't do it either because they call it one way in one game and the other way in the other game. So what the hell is what's the
what I've always said, man, lack of consistency, man. Just lack of consistency. It's
but they left, thank God now I could have had, Josh Allen versus Drake May. And no, now we get Josh Allen. We get Drake May versus Jared Stidham.
Yep. We'll see, man. We'll see. Could be, could be a good game, man. You give, listen, Champagne as a coach, man, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's dangerous, in this position. And I'm sure he's got those guys believing, that everybody hates him and nobody's giving him a chance, which it's not a stretch. It's kind of the truth. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Hopefully they're good games and see what happens.
Trying to see it was 5.5.
I think it's more now, no?
The last time I checked.
I thought it was more for some reason.
Or at least on Hard Rock, it's 5. So Broncos getting 5.
Okay. I don't know why I thought it was more. I thought it was like 7.5 or something.
I don't know. That's just Hard Rock. That's all we can use here in Florida. But, other states it's legal. Like Nashville, it's the Wild Wild West. You can use whatever you want.
Yeah. Georgia, you can't use shit. So. Yeah, man. That is it, bro. You don't have anything else, man. We'll wrap it up.
Yeah, close the chapter on 2025. Gone too fast.
Yeah, man. Like we were talking about early on, we blinked and it's, and it ended, right? College is definitely done. We got 3 more NFL games. And, but then we'll quickly, in terms of the NFL, man, we'll turn the page, right? Because, draft prep will start. And, after that, it's like, rookie mini camp and, we'll little by little, man, we have a lot of some dates kind of, throughout the first quarter of the year that'll kind of, help us get through it. And in college, you'll start spring practice like here in like a month and a half, right? I mean, it starts, very, very soon after the title game. So there'll be more news to report and more things to talk about. So again, we won't have any live games, but we'll have some more stuff to talk about, man. So we'll get to it. But there he is, my boy Will. About to be on with him now here in 15 minutes.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. So for anybody watching now, man, if you guys want some more content, man, tune in here in a little bit to the I Hate Football podcast. I'll have Will from 305 Sports now on with me. But man, if you don't have anything else, man, we'll wrap it up.
Nah, just if you like NFL content, the boys over there do that the draft show. I can't remember the exact name. Was it Wingate and Coach and Bobby? They're icing me out right now, but they, I told them they do good draft content. So if
I was on there last year with them. I'm gonna try to get back on there again.
If you need some information on the draft, those guys do do a lot of hard work. So definitely check that out here on FTSN.
Absolutely, man.
Definitely all the guys, even though it's Dolphin stuff, hey, I got to give them credit. They do hard work. You got to give them credit on that, even though it's not my team. Hey, people put in their work. If you're, if that's your team, check everybody out because everybody is working hard for their content to put their stuff out and knows their stuff.
Absolutely, man. Like I always say, man, a lot of good people putting out a lot of good content, man. FTSN Extra, my boy Will from 305 Sports Now, Bobby Finn's Talk. We got who else? Finn Sammy is on there. 305 Sports babe, her and her man, was it Lou from Dade or whatever. Steve Malloy, man, just a bunch of people on there, man. Go on there and check them out on YouTube, FTSN and FTSN Extra, which is where you could find us, College Blitz. If you don't have nothing else, man,
don't forget about me
and my boy Russ on the On Deck podcast. Exactly. If you want some good baseball coverage.
On deck, yeah, Wednesday nights. But we're trying to get, and you're more than welcome to jump in if you want. But we got the World Baseball Classic coming up, and I teased it on my show. So I'm trying to get a time together where we do a little preview. It's going to be me, Finn Sammy, who's from Puerto Rico, Alex, who's obviously Cuban American, and then Finn Stanza, he's from Canada, and then myself. So I'm trying to get a little preview going, a little heated because all three of those teams are playing in San Juan too.
Oh wow,
Cuba,
very cool.
Puerto Rico and Canada playing San Juan. So
man, you got some loaded rosters, man. That Venezuela roster's loaded. The Dominican roster's loaded. The Puerto Rican roster's loaded. Obviously, the U.S. roster, like you got, there's some teams, there's some heavy hitters, man. Some heavy hitters. It's gonna be loaded. It's gonna be a hell of a tournament, man. It's gonna be a hell of a tournament for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. But you're obviously, I know you're not a huge baseball guy, but you're obviously more than welcome to jump in if you'd like to.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Yeah, keep me posted on it, man. See what we can get figured out. So yeah, man, that's it.
Yeah, hey, Q, you're Colombian, right?
My family's Colombian. I was born in Miami, but my family's Colombian.
Okay, well that makes sense. But I mean, Colombia's in there too.
Yeah. I mean, they're not. They do play baseball in Colombia. I think not to the level that Venezuela plays it, obviously.
But they got some sick hats, so I will give.
Oh, I haven't seen them.
Colombia puts out some. It's the yellow with the blue with the flag.
Yeah.
Colombia always puts out some sick.
I need to check it out. I love their World Cup uniform. I'm definitely a fan of that. I'll definitely be acquiring that at some point here soon. But I haven't seen their World Baseball Classic gear. I have to check that out, man. And obviously I'm a hat guy, so
yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. I got well over 100 hats, so probably closer to 150 hats. So. Definitely need to find that one for the collection right there. So,
all
right, bro, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Too bad it's
all right, guys.
Over now, but
yeah, man, it'll. They can't ruin any more of my weekends for like 8 more months. So I'm happy about that because as you know, I hate football. So, all right, man. Hey, for my boy Russ, I am Q. Check us out. Like and subscribe to the show on YouTube, on Instagram, on X, on all those platforms. Do us a huge favor and give us a like. So again, for my boy Russ, I am Q, and we'll see you guys next week. Y'all have a good night. Take care.